Hey, Rudy, it's good to see you again.
You too, Joe. It's always good to see you. I have my hat on backwards today, knowing that we're going to have a good podcast.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
There are so many people listening right now who are, they're thinking about their future and wondering if now might be the time to make that move to becoming an entrepreneur, starting their own
Yeah,
business. But
yeah,
the
I
number
know.
one thing holding
It's
most people
fear,
back,
fear.
it's fear, right?
Yep, it's a dream crusher, right, Joe?
It is. I mean, what do you have any sort of advice for people? What do you tell people when they talk about being fearful of taking a step?
Well, first of all, get your faith in line and eliminate the fear. That's number one. Number two, we need to listen to people who also eliminated fear in their life.
The other thing people tend to do is they tend to think things to death. I mean, there's a great saying,
Overanalyze.
yeah,
Yep.
perfection is the
Yeah,
enemy of
it is
progress.
not. It,
I,
it's it's called
I,
organized chaos, Joe. You need to
yeah,
be organize
yeah,
it as you go.
yeah. I knew absolutely nothing about the publishing business before I pitched my first book. I think I've
Yeah,
told you that. What I was convinced of was that the book idea itself, I was convinced of that. But I've always believed the good Lord looks out for the ignorant and the persistent. And the trick is to be the right mix of both. I
yeah,
saw a great article. I was telling you about this yesterday. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, in it, he
yeah,
says, I'm not attached to process. I'm only attached to outcome. How do I get through it all? I figure it out along the way. I'll make
yeah.
the
That's
changes I
we
need
call
to.
it the
Uh,
Rudy way.
say again, I'm sorry.
People call it the Rudy way. People have seen, oh, we did it the Rudy way. I said, what way is that? We just jumped in.
That's it. He says, I'm not attached to process. He said,
Yeah,
I'm only attached to outcome. How do I get through it? I'll figure it out along the way. I'll
yeah.
make many changes. I'll go down the wrong path, but the goal remains the same, and I'll get there one way or another. And as you
Perfectly
said,
said. Oh,
our
wow.
yeah, as you said,
Yeah.
our guest believes in that philosophy. WorldVentures Chief Visionary Officer Wayne Nugent founded his company on fun, freedom, and fulfillment. That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? Today, Wayne's acclaim for being the master in the art of living is a result of his wisdom, his compassion, and his faith. He mentors his representatives to magnify their spiritual, physical, emotional, intellectual, and financial lives. Rudy, joining us is your friend, Wayne Nugent.
And let's get going with Wayne. He's
The
wonderful
other
to
thing that
speak to.
the other thing the two of you share, you're both veterans. And
Right. He's Marine. I'm Navy.
yeah.
We're off for the ride, buddy.
You
In
bet.
fact, I saw the video of you where you were dressed like Rudy. At one of your conventions. You've said that there are a number of similarities in your story to Rudy's. What are some of the similarities you think?
Well, we both grew up going to parochial schools. We had nuns and
Yes.
priests beating on us our whole lives.
There you go.
And Rudy was probably tougher than me, man, because he had all those brothers. I had an older sister and a younger sister.
Yeah, it's seven sisters too protecting me.
And, then we go in the military, right after school. And a lot of people don't know that about Rudy, that it wasn't from high school straight into Notre Dame football. It was the Navy, and just growing up the way that he did, and then going in the military, and then being able to take that to I'm sure that really helped. He had a level of maturity. And same thing for me. I went from the Marine Corps into community college, and when it was time for me to transfer, I had started my own small businesses, and I was just doing well financially, so I never transferred. I did get a 4.0 at community college.
Wow.
Yeah, in the Cornerstone program, the honors program, I could pretty much transfer anywhere I wanted to go. But I had these snow cone stands, and I had a couple other businesses, and just as
May I ask you, what was it why do you suppose that you had this sort of entrepreneurial spirit early on?
well, fortunately,
Can I say something before he answers that?
Yeah.
Because too many people were beating on us. And he had that chip on his shoulder. Explain that, Wayne.
well, I think everybody grows up wondering, am I good enough? There's always three kinds of people. There's the people you look up to, the people you feel on par with, and then the people that look up to you. I don't think people have that sense of awareness. They just feel like, am I really good enough? And I think it's human nature to kind of compare yourself to other people. And, whether it be grades or sports or something. And people don't have the maturity to have their own identity yet. Mm-hmm. And, I look at cycles, life cycles, and, there's always the survival of the fittest, so to speak. And whether, nowadays, what does that look like? I mean, back when you used to have to be, I guess the strongest and bravest and all that kind of thing. Now maybe it's, books, now it is technology and other things. What does it take to survive in today's world versus, thousands of years ago? Mm-hmm. And I think it's just different. And, how do you compare yourself? I don't know. I just wanted to succeed. And, in life, there's going to be all these cycles, and what does success look like? And Rudy's good. I mean, I get that kind of inspiration from Rudy. Mm-hmm. Like, you learn this later on, how do you define success? Pursuit of a worthy cause, and you're growing. And, Rudy had that vision in mind. It reminds me of, remember that movie, City Slickers? With,
yeah. Yeah.
Remember? Yeah. With Billy Crystal and Jack
Billy
Palance,
Crystal. Yeah.
Billy
Great
Crystal.
Movie.
Yep.
He held up
exactly.
Yeah.
That one thing.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that one thing. Yeah.
And for Rudy, you knew it was Notre Dame.
Well, yeah, it was, but it's funny. I think because of the Navy, and maybe you could contribute this with the Marines. It kind of helped me think like that. It showed me there's other possibilities out in life other than what they told you back in school.
Yeah, I remember coming out of boot camp and just feeling somehow younger, and super like strong and all this, but at the same, but at the same time more mature. Like mature, mm-hmm. Like I could take on the world.
Right.
And
that's kind of like how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
You
a self-esteem,
though, Wayne, right? You give a lot of credit to your father for providing you an outlook on life and on business. What are some of the things that you learned from him?
Yeah, so I've got some books right here. Fortunately, this book, As a Man Thinketh, by James Allen, my favorite book.
Great book.
My dad had a little desk in front of his toilet.
His
and
job.
His daughter at work or something. And
his office.
I got to go to the restroom, so I sit down on his toilet. And right in front, on his little whiskered desk in front of his toilet, he's got this book, As a Man Thinketh. And I pick it up and I start reading it. And, it's one of those life-changing kind of books that I feel really fortunate and blessed to have picked it up at such a young age. But, be born into that where a book like that is laying around. Mm-hmm. And as I go to the bookshelf and I find other books, that are a little bit more rare and eclectic, and I have these books today,
For someone that's not familiar with As a Man Thinketh, what's the biggest takeaway from that book?
Well, mind is the master power that molds and makes, and man is mind, and evermore he takes the tool of thought, shaping what he wills, brings forth 1,000 joys, 1,000 ills. He thinks in secret, and it comes to pass. Environment is but his looking glass. They themselves are makers of themselves. Your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. As you think it in your heart, so you are.
Wow, you spent a lot of time in that little office.
Yeah. Well, it really, your mind is like a garden.
Yeah.
And you call it goofy thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay. All the time you refer to goofy thoughts.
Right.
Okay. Your mind's like a garden, and you either cultivate that garden and you pluck the weeds. Correct. Or it just runs amok and it's gonna be weed infested. And so when you see your mind like a garden, anytime you have a negative thought, I immediately just pluck that weed. I don't let it take root. I don't think about it. I don't water it, because it'll grow. Right?
I like that.
I have zero tolerance for negativity. And that's not from outside people or outside things. That's mostly within myself, right? Because you're with yourself more than anybody. Mm-hmm. You know, you have a relationship with yourself like all the time, or should I say, you know, God all the time. And so the God within, and so most people just don't separate themselves. They don't understand ego and you know, think about what you're thinking about. And most people never get to that place where they slow down enough to think about what they're thinking about as they're thinking it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You know, you mentioned at one time you were making $1 million a year in sales. Then you changed that whole culture within your mind to help people. All of a sudden it grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where you're at today.
Yeah, you know, that's fulfillment. You'll never be fulfilled by what you get, what you personally do or accomplish. It's what you give. I think God, who created the universe, made it up that way. These are just God's rules, you know, and I don't think you're just meant to get. I, me, mine. I think that once you get your needs taken care of, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, mm-hmm. And you get your needs met, I think it's just innate that you want to then, you know, help other people and take care of their needs. And so you've been doing that. You know, at first you achieved your goal, but then how did you use your goal to then, you know, and go through everything you had to do to get the movie made? But then but then your movie, how did that inspire so many other people? Then mm-hmm. after the movie, you know, all your speaking engagements, you know, it is. I mean, it's just, you've had a very powerful, very influential life, and that's you giving back. And, you know, I'm grateful to you and for you. And I think that you probably get a lot of that feedback from a lot of people outside of sports.
You know, I've been on a journey. I was thinking about this the other day, since we're now in this real terrible stage of quarantine. It's really, unless you start talking to good people, then it becomes a gift. This is what it's becoming to me. A real gift in order to reach out to people, especially you. I said, Joe, we got to talk to Wayne. I mean, he's the guy that hasn't, when I watch him on stage, when I see him interact with people, it's more than money to him. It's a fulfillment of having other people excited about who they are. And that's what I get excited about. You know, for a while, I couldn't understand people like you until I start seeing it. I said, that's what I want to be like. That's who I am. And I changed that road, I call the journey, to that now. It's been a while, but you got to go through some tough times to understand what you're saying. And you've been through them. If you don't mind telling the people about your tough times, I would love, you don't have to say them all, but give us a little feel.
You know, forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. Right. You know, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. You know, it's right. People don't realize, because we do movies and everything. We put what the definition of success looks like. And almost like I have to lie, cheat, steal, do something to get ahead in life or above other people to get my stuff, you know, and yeah, that's true. There's a lot of that in the world. But then when tough times like this come, you also see the greatness of people, you know, the real loving humanity that's in there as well. And that's life. You know, when you're a spiritual being having this human existence, and this is a world of dichotomies where it's good and bad, up and down, top and bottom, inside, outside, you know, and how can you appreciate the good unless there's bad?
Right. In 2008, you experienced that with your team.
Yeah, we ran up to, well, after 2008, we rallied. We were mainly a U.S. based company, and of course, back then it was real estate and mortgages and all that was crashing. You were in ground zero, weren't you, in Vegas?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. So I was ground zero for the bad economy in Phoenix and LA and New York. So those were my hot markets, man. I was doing these big events, as you know.
Yeah.
Those are my hot markets. We give out a trophy to the team that brought the most people, and it was from those cities. And then all of a sudden, 2007, 8, I crash, and we gave rise to, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Texas, and Oklahoma, and Nashville, Tennessee, and other areas, gave rise. And then we went over to Europe and then caught the China wave and then the China bubble, and all that. So, yes, that's more of these, cycles. Unfortunately, I learned from my dad as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, about these cycles, because I made him become a millionaire and then lose millions, become a millionaire and lose millions, become a millionaire, And he did it in real estate at first, and then back in 87, well, oil and gas and all this in Texas took a hit. So he made millions, but then he lost millions. Then he got in the telecom, and caught the tech boom, but also the tech bust. But I learned from my dad, before you ask for a piece of the pie, first figure out how big's the pie. Ask how big, if you want a piece of how big's that pie. And it's not only what's big right now, it's what's going to be big in the future. And so I learned to think 20 years down the road. And for me, the baby boomers were coming of age, and where there's change, there's opportunity. So the baby boomers were coming of age, and there was the internet. I mean, this was back during dial-up and bing bong, ding dong, and all that. Google didn't exist, but I was searching on Alta Vista and things like that for travel, and Yahoo. It was their number one thing. All the buttons you could click on Yahoo, travel was the number one thing, more than books or music or computers or anything. And where there's change, there's opportunity. I learned that and money doesn't never disappear or go away. It just changes hands. And when somebody else is losing, somebody else is winning. And what side of that equation do you want to be on? And God gave you, your creative mind, and if you can use your creativity, you don't have to wait for the government to solve your problems.
Correct.
You just roll with the punches. And so anyway, I started studying, and I started doing travel back then before Expedia existed, Travelocity, then later on came Orbitz. And I just wanted to do the leisure side, and bring people together. And that doesn't change. Humans were meant to be social creatures, and here we are right now being separated. And in my business, travel, it's ground zero right now. Travel's taking a hit. My events around the world, restaurants, but at the same time, now with technology, we're able to connect through Zoom like this, and we're all just feeling, blessed and waiting for when we can travel together again and see each other again.
You said something real important, creativeness. I think you're going to get creative with other things as well besides travel. That's my gut. And I think you can come up with something pretty good and pretty big. That's what I see in your eyes. But you're not going to tell us yet. But that's okay. You're putting it through your mind. I know it's going to be big. Because Wayne, you don't let anything stop you. I could see that.
Can I ask you a question, Wayne? One of the things you said was in change is opportunity, which I think all three of us are in agreement on that. But a lot of people in change, they see fear. And when you're training your leadership, I'm just curious, what do you talk about when you're facing fear?
Yeah, so now we're into spiral dynamics and dichotomies again, and the garden of your mind. And there's really only two things. There's fear and there's love. And the opposite of love isn't hate, it's fear. And if you start again going towards fear and feeding the fear, you're going to spiral out. And now you're giving up your control to actually do anything. So people go towards fear. Their worst fears become realized. The Bible says, fear not, fear not, fear not, 365 times, right?
Right.
But people go towards their fear, they spiral out, and their worst fears become realized. And what you got to be able to do is stop that cycle. And I'm able to do that with myself and get creative. But it's harder when you run an army like I do. I got people, over 250,000 salespeople in 42 countries around the world. Wow. And so I've got my generals that I rely on. And then I've got to be able to have the right relationship with them, trusted relationship with them, that I can then get them to go talk to their generals, and then, their front line, that kind of thing. And you just try and save people with that. So, that comes from spiral dynamics. Here. Which came from the, memeonomics, the next generation economic system. And then another book called Spiral Dynamics. And it kind of lays that thing out. You start to see truth. All these books and everything talks about truth, the same truth, but in a different way. And, so being aware of that, just being aware of that helps you,
And I like what you said. You're schooling yourself. You're educating yourself and all these great, you read a lot. What are some of the top books you would recommend for people listening right now that would help them get through this? We eliminate hate and we go to love. I like that. Mm-hmm. Eliminate jealousy. You go to forgiveness. That is kind of like the secret to cleansing your mind of all these goofy thoughts. But what are some of the books that you have that you would recommend, Wayne?
Yeah, so TED, the empowerment dynamic, right now there's going to be record bankruptcies around the world. And people are going to go into victimhood. And people are going to think, is this, at first, before the bad economy, people think, is this me? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, or is it my company, or, is it God? But it is what it is. And it's not what happens in life. It's how you react to what happens in life. But there's a book called TED, The Empowerment Dynamic, and most people go into victimhood. And again, when you do that, you give up all your control. But when you go into creator mode, okay, now there's something you can actually do about it. And so that's one book. But when people ask me, like, what book would I recommend or am I reading, I break up my library into 5 categories, just like the 5 aspects of your being. Spiritual, physical, emotional, intellectual, and financial. And I take all of me wherever I go. You take all of you wherever you go, right? Mm-hmm. I don't separate work and play. For me, it's all one. And in business, it's a spiritual thing to me, mm-hmm. And so I'm always trying to build every aspect of somebody, the well-being, the well-being of your whole being.
I love that. Yeah.
And so I want to encourage people to, really get in touch with their spiritual side.
Right. Good time to do it.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And you learn, you start to notice little miracles, but you also find people like you, Rudy, that's an inspiration. And then you look at the root word of, spirit and breath, and God breathed life.
Yeah.
And then, so then you learn about breath,
mm-hmm.
and prayer and meditation, and it's all connected. But when you're a guy that's an inspiration, has anybody ever asked you, so if you had a superpower, what would that be? Would you fly or be like super strong or what? For me, it would be like to have that power where I absorb somebody else's power, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And I accumulate all these powers.
Yeah.
And that's what you can do with people. So I take a guy like you, Rudy, and you're an inspiration. And how do I absorb the best of Rudy?
Right.
Into my being. And that's what I think that we do with each other. We help each other. We learn from each other. A smart person learns from their own mistakes. A wise person learns from other people's mistakes. And I'd rather be wise. So, the Bible says, above all things, pray for wisdom, not gold or money or success or anything like that. Because if you have the wisdom, then you'll wind up, probably getting the money like Solomon, but you got to have humility.
Yeah, that's one thing you have. I've seen you speak, I watched you speak, and that's what comes out immediately. To get to that level, you personally had to go through a lot of struggle to understand.
Yes, yeah, and if you're doing everything for the right reasons, you can go through all that stuff. I mean, I'm always, trying to put people first. I mean, people are in need, and people are in want. And if I can use my God-given creativity or whatever God gave me to help other people, and I never did anything by myself. I always just thought, think and grow rich, as a man thinketh, the power of positive thinking, the magic of thinking big. I mean, it's all thinking. So people never stop in today's busy, hectic world and shut when you and I were growing up, I don't know about you, I mean, where there were 3 TV channels, black and white TV. You had the rabbit ears, right, with the tinfoil.
Correct.
You get a signal.
Yeah.
But now there's hundreds of channels, right, with cable and all that. And then comes the internet, and then now everybody has their channel or everybody has their podcast.
Yes.
Right? How do you break through? There's so much information being created every day. So, you get, less is more. You got to learn to narrow it down. Know thyself and thine own self be true. So get the information you're looking for. But what are you here to do? You can't do everything. I watch movies like with Tom Cruise, and he's a fighter pilot. He's a race car driver.
Yeah, right.
Typically in life, you're not going to have all that level of multiple, careers and be an expert at everything like he is. So what's your one thing? And I mean, I don't know. If I broke up your life, like Rudy, I'd say, okay, here he was. Here's your military life, your school life, then your military life, and then there was, your time at Notre Dame, and I love it. I go, here's a guy that's more famous in football for 1 or 2 plays. Right. Somebody that won the Heisman,
Super Bowls,
or that won Super Bowls.
Right.
I proudly pay more.
That's interesting you said that, because I'm in a tunnel at Notre Dame. We're going to do a pep talk for 50,000 people right before they played USC. And I'll never forget this guy in the tunnel. He's one of the ushers, and he says, "Why is Rudy here?" I wasn't going to say anything because he had Joe Montana, Tim Brown, Chris Zorich, and all these great Hall of Famers. Now I'm going to myself, I think I should say something to that dude. So I said, "Sir, I'm Rudy because I didn't do anything, but I did do one thing. I didn't quit." I says, and what's important about that, they made my movie. They didn't make Montana's movie. And he kind of looked at me and walked away. All these guys, I think he said, they look for the glory instead of the journey. They buy into the glory. Montana had such a Rudy journey too. People don't understand that. You had your Rudy journey. We all have our Rudy journey. And that's what inspires people, is that journey. That's why I love listening to you, your people. A lot of your leaders have their Rudy journeys. There's a great kid, one of your great leaders went to the Naval Academy, played football. Wow, what dynamic he is. And when I met him, I don't care what he sold. I don't care what he did. I just loved him. His spirit was genuine like yours, and his connection was real. That's what I love. That's what you bring to the table, Wayne.
You know what prevents a lot of people from starting their journey, though, is oftentimes they think they have to be perfect. They have to.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Have
perfect notes, perfect this, and perfect that.
And perfection, as they say, perfection is
their hair's got to be perfect. Their glasses got to fit right.
But as they say, perfection's the enemy of progress. What are your thoughts about that, Wayne? Is your theory to have everything in place, or is it to get in the jet stream?
It's called organized chaos.
Well, hopefully, Rudy, I can give you some advice.
Okay.
Although, you're like a big brother to me. But when I think of like, let's see.
He's got the Walt Disney book there too. I love that.
Yeah. So Walt Disney, Steve Jobs,
yeah.
I got my heroes, but right here, John C. Maxwell.
Yeah, he's great.
Right?
Yeah.
21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my favorite books on leadership, and there's lots of books out there on leadership. He kind of owns this word, leadership, as an author, okay, and public speaker.
Correct.
If it was me, long term, I'd like to,
choose
have
joy.
I'd rather, I'd rather have joy. There's books on happiness.
Yeah.
The word happiness, but that's happenstance. That's fleeting.
Yeah, yeah.
But joy is deeper, more soulful.
Yes.
Spiritual.
Yes.
Right. And so that's what I would strive for if I was gonna have a word associated with my name. Right.
Right.
Now you're such a good candidate for this. You should own the word persistence or tenacity.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's interesting because that's how people look at me. And the first word they think of is that word.
It's the don't quit, right?
Yeah, it's more what you said earlier, Wayne. It's the want to, it's the why, it's what I want in life, and it's the why I want it. And once you define that, things kind of come in a good, but you got to get rid of all the people that won't allow you to think why or think what you need in life. And that's the hard part. But you found something spiritually that's really cool that you deliver to your leaders and they deliver it to their leaders. It's powerful. When you step into your culture, you feel that. You absolutely feel that. And I love that.
Well, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And you got all the survival needs and everything at the bottom, but then you got self-actualization at the top. And most people, it's a journey of their lifetime before they figure all that out. And, I think that, again, if you're aware, you can fast track all that.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through all those and get to self-actualization a lot sooner in life. And because there's the youth, and then as you're older, there's the wisdom. And I'd rather be wise and young.
It's interesting. I went to a prison to do a what they call a spiritual meeting, and I went with Mike McCoy. He's a big Green Gray Packer guy. He does this little talk where they don't let them. They're in their bars, in their cages, they call it. They didn't listen to him. Anything he said about Jesus or anything. I'm going, I know why. He's pushing faith in their face. So I get up there and I say, I'm Rudy. They all start chanting Rudy. All the prisoners. I'm going, you guys seen Rudy? Oh, man, that's what we watch, man. You're the man. They kept yelling. But they were spiritual. Now I could talk to them about the spiritual side of them. That's what opened the door. When they recognize that, I don't have to be a football star to speak like this. I can just be an ordinary guy, a regular guy. I'm still somebody. We make mistakes. That's what you're about. That's what you give to people.
Yeah, truth is truth. I mean, when you look at like King David, right? And, he has everything and walked with God, but then all of a sudden he sees Bathsheba.
Right.
She's looking good over there.
I like your sense of humor. I love it.
It should have done that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Thou shalt not.
Right.
And, but adultery, and then he screwed up. And you know what he wanted back after all that? He had all the money, he had all the power.
Yeah, he wanted joy.
He had all the trappings of success that everybody longed for. But you know what? The one thing he wanted back?
That joy. Yeah, that's right.
Joy of the Lord, baby.
Yeah, that's right.
And being at peace, man. Being at peace. Being able to sleep good at night. And that's the thing.
And I always tell people, don't worry about the mistakes you made. Let's don't relive the past. Live in your moment and learn from your mistakes. And that's the other thing I see from your people when I go into your culture. Look, guys, I've been at Wayne's functions, and I know when Wayne, go on YouTube and watch Wayne Nugent, watch his talks and watch his people, and you'll feel it. You don't have to do what they do and do that isn't the case, like Wayne said. The case is finding your joy. Am I right?
Yeah, you got to be strong in your core.
Yeah.
Meaning if it's at first it's just you and God.
Right.
Okay, so again, spiritual, physical, emotional, intellectual, and financial. And I'm putting those in order, right? Because if it was just you and God and you didn't have a body and there wasn't earth, then it's the spiritual that's there. But as soon as you add earth and you add gravity, now you're into the physical realm. And how are you going to be to survive on Earth and planet and you against the animals, or you with the animals, and sunlight comes to the plants, and then the plants absorb the sun. It's photosynthesis, and when you eat fruits and vegetables, right? You're eating what was powered by God. Now, as soon as you eat something that ate that, okay, now you're adding a layer in between. But anyways, this is just, if we're just talking about you and your diet, right?
Yeah,
much less you and your survival.
Right.
Okay, but as soon as there's woman or a mate or a spouse or a friend, as soon as you add another human, whether it be a friend or a lover, the whole dynamic changes. Now you're not just responsible for you and your happiness. Now you got a whole nother brain and mind, body, and soul over here to deal with.
Yeah.
And either help protect or partner with or whatever. And men and women are not one better than the other. It's just, we're equal. Just God made us different and complementary. But, and again, now you're back to dichotomies.
I know our time is tight. So I just wanted to ask you, because, there are people that are all hunkered at home right now, and maybe they've lost their job, or they're feeling alone or powerless or like victims. What can you tell them to deal with this uncertainty, help them?
Yeah, don't get your identity caught up in stuff, whether it be a job or career. Like me, I'm you could say I'm a white man, born in America, was in the Marine Corps, Christian or something. The more you identify with things and lock into that, the more you're going to separate other people and things. Mm-hmm. So when you lose something, then you're really losing a part of your identity, and you shouldn't attach your identity to stuff, whether it be your job or your house or your money or this or that. When you really understand that, you got this God-given creativity inside of you, and you're on earth. This isn't heaven, and there's going to be stuff that happens. And you got the power of God in you. You got the creativity of God in you. You got imagination. Again, back to Walt Disney over here. Yeah. Imagination. And if you'll use your imagination and creativity, it's what's next for you. How can you reinvent yourself right now? And anybody who's stuck at home or locked up at home that's not taking themselves through a process, and learning and growing, if they're just sitting home binge watching Netflix or bubble gum for the brain, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
And, then they got to take accountability. There's got to be some self-accountability there. Shame on you for wasting your time and wasting your brain and your ability. And right now you should be doing some soul searching, and you should break down your life into the 5 key areas: spiritual, physical, emotional, intellectual, financial. And if you focus on any one of those areas for 90 days, like P90X, a season of your life, you can change your life dramatically in every one of these. If you read the Bible every day for 90 days, if you go to church for 90 days, if you practice meditation for 90 days, you're going to be different spiritually, period, in the story. Radically different from where you are right now. Same thing with physical. If you work out every day, you're going to be different physically. If you focus on your relationships and how can I be a better friend, mate, husband, father, all that, neighbor, you're going to be better, right? If you care about communication and the pool of shared knowledge, and there's always, 3 sides of the story: your story, their story, and then the truth somewhere in the middle, right? So you learn communication skills, and then if it might be your intellectual, your hobbies, your interests, what could you be doing at home right now in terms of painting, learning to play piano, gardening, something, right? And then there's the financial side. What are you doing to bring value to the marketplace? And the more people you help, the more money you're going to make. So what is it that you're learning that you can not only do and make yourself an income, but I would go even beyond that, that once you master that, how can you teach that? And now, because Rudy, you're a teacher, I think you earned your story, right? You wrote your history, but now you're using that to really guide people to a conversation like this and your podcast.
Right.
I'm a big friend of yours, a hero of yours, cheerleader for you, and everything you do, because I know where you're coming from, and you're wanting to give back to people. And so here it is. I think that you want people to, yes, what can you learn from Rudy and me? What can you learn from the people I have as guests on my podcast, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing. I know that your main number one thing is to help and to give back. And I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Wayne, ditto. And I'm humbled and honored to even have this conversation with you, because I know how many people would love this. Yeah. But now, hopefully, Joe, I hope you enjoyed it.
I was thrilled when you said reach out to Wayne. I said, man, if he'll come on, that'd be awesome. And Wayne,
he's a tough one to get on.
It's been inspirational for people. I think it's been wonderful, and I'm grateful that you've shared what you've learned and the fact that you are inspiring people, because you have a thirst for learning. You're continuing to learn in spite of despite all of your success. You're still thirsting for more inspiration and education, and paying that forward, passing that along. It's wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Well, Joe, I can tell you, like I said, I've never accomplished anything on my own in life. It was always with a best friend, or somebody that had a common vision with me. And that's really what you're doing with Rudy.
Right.
And so I appreciate, you working with my people to bring us together. We're all doing our part. And I'm just a guy on the team. You know what I mean? Just trying to play my part.
Right.
And Rudy was on the team. He played his part day in and day out, took those beatings.
Yeah, yeah.
People don't know. I got your helmet right here.
I know, the real one. Joe, that's the real helmet.
No,
I
know. He showed it. Yeah.
Look at it.
Look, I'm holding it to the camera. When you look at the dings and cuts and everything in this helmet, and then you look on the inside of it, it ain't like a modern day helmet.
Yeah.
No.
What's cool about that, you know how big Rudy is, going up against other big guys, taking this kind of a beating. I mean, you do.
Well, let me tell you what's unique about that helmet, Wayne.
Uh-huh.
It's been painted. It was one of the look. They don't paint Notre Dame helmets anymore. That is one of the unique helmets that they painted. They would paint that helmet. That was the goal, to get your helmet painted. You don't get it painted unless you dress for a game.
Oh, wow.
That's why I'm excited about it. That is the big deal right there. Getting your helmet painted. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I love it, because when I'm showing this to people, and I'm just so proud of it and what it represents, because between you and me, I don't know, Joe, if you know this, but I mean that helmet costs as much as a Ferrari.
Yeah, no, I've heard.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And again, what would I rather have? Rudy's helmet or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or something? No, I don't give a crap about that.
Yeah.
Depreciating asset. Or you know what I'm saying? I mean,
sure.
It's a representation of what I value, and to me, it's life. That's life changing. There's so much lessons wrapped up in that.
Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome.
It's like having a relic. We're all. I'm assuming you're a cradle Catholic too, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. All three of us. So it's like having a sacred relic, an actual piece that matters. Wayne, we can talk to you all day. I don't want to.
It's even more pure.
Yeah, exactly. I certainly don't want to impose. Thank you so much for the conversation. It was great. I hope
we love you.
Wow, Rudy, you were right. I mean, he's he has a lot of insights, and I love the fact that his faith is at the foundation of everything that he does.
Yes, and his faith leads him to the good readings. He's a reader now. He's talking about how he educates himself through good books and good reads.
Right.
So not so much the schooling. We confuse that a little bit, schooling. But if we get the right information in front of us and get us inspired, we'll read the information we need to know in order to do what we need to do. And that's what Wayne has done. And I'm really excited that we got to experience that with him.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, we look forward to sharing your story. You know, you can write us, send us your thoughts, send us your story, send them to Rudy at riseabovewithrudy.com. That's his email address, rudy@riseabovewithrudy.com. Please leave us a nice comment and hit that subscribe button. It really does help us get the word out about the podcast. And we need positivity now more than ever. So stay well, stay positive, and we'll see you next time.
God bless you guys. Stay strong.